Let's start with some inflation data. We still believe that this inflation situation is somewhat transitory. The bottlenecks will work their way out. The energy prices have had a huge pop, and that's contributed to inflation in a very recent term. We think energy prices are likely to have run their course so far. Quick shot at the data here, Kaylee, if you could put that up for people. It shows quarterly inflation data. So of course, we came out of the pandemic, all the money poured into the system, oil prices rebounding from below zero to now let's call it $80 area. We don't think that that's going to repeat. We're going to go up another $80 from here. So the contribution to inflation from energy is likely done. The contribution to inflation from bottlenecks, we're living with it. We think supply chain bottlenecks will work themselves out. Different ports and different categories, each their own timing, but 6 to 12 months, we'll see bottlenecks primarily behind us. And we'll return to inflation levels that the Fed is aiming for, that 2% zone. And that's what you see in these bar charts. This is the consensus estimates aggregated by Bloomberg. So inflation high for next, call it 4 quarters, well, the past 2 and the next 2, so 4 quarters of high inflation. But if you actually look at it in a historical context, we're just making up for the 0 to negative inflation that we had at the depths of the pandemic. All right, so that's great for that slide. Thank you, producer. So Kevin, what are your thoughts? You see inflation through your businesses, you see supply chain issues through your businesses. What's going on the ground with all of these small, medium-sized private companies?
I think the reason we're having inflation at all right now is 80-90% based on supply chain issues. And so I'll give you a typical situation. Let's say a company like Love Pop Greeting Cards, America's fastest greeting card company. I happen to be an investor in it. Our biggest challenge now is not sales, it's not demand, it's supply chain. And so the cost of a container has quadrupled. So that has to be reflected somewhere, either in pricing or in margin compression, but that's definitely inflationary. Everybody's heard the story of container jams. We're not running our ports 24/7, particularly in California, which is ludicrous. And that's another problem. We've got ships full of product for all kinds of companies that we're waiting 6 days for. So when we scramble to service customers, we're paying up to provide the services and goods during this period of disruption. And so, this is an unforeseen consequence that came out of the pandemic, but in pretty well every business that I'm involved in, we have some pressure somewhere because of supply chain issues. Now, if we could snap our fingers and immediately solve for that, there wouldn't be much inflation at all. And I'll give you another good example. The chip shortage, which plagues every sector of the economy right now, we're only making 25% of the required chips that we need in the United States. The rest all come from Asia. So we're in a really bad situation here. It's going to cost billions of dollars to build up the infrastructure to supply our own chips. We're going to have to do it. But in the meantime, try and buy a Ford 150 that has all its chips in it. Very, very difficult. Same with all the other auto manufacturers. And as a result, the inflation that's occurring in the used car market is something you can measure every day. You can buy cars today, or you're forced to buy used cars that cost more than the original. And that's inflation. But again, it's transitory.